Let's go to Renardo Green for a second. I love this pick, but it's funny. Kuiper said it was a 2-round reach. I know a lot of the draft people had him in the 4th round, 5th round. I kind of had him more in the 3rd round, so I had no problem with the Niners going at end of round 2 with Renardo. When you watch his film, I think this guy's a hitter. I mean, in some ways, I think when they lost Mosley and Ward, Jimmy Ward, they lost some alphas on their back end. And I feel like this guy and Mustapha are definitely kind of the replacement alphas. They have that kind of leader type personality. But when I saw Green, the only concern I had was a lot of penalties. Got a little grabby at the top of the route, and also he just did the thing that you can't, maybe you can do in college, you can't do in the NFL. You can't face guard in the NFL and get away with it. They just always throw the flag. And I saw 3 or 4 examples of him face guarding down the field where he just didn't get his head turned. And if he gets his head turned, everything he did was fine, but he didn't get his head turned and he got the flag. What concerns do you have with Green? Did they overdraft him? What traits? I mean, you played DB. Do you like his traits? Or, you mentioned, press man versus zone. I feel like he could play some zone, but, is he a good fit for what the Niners do?
First let's talk about where he was drafted, and 31. I think a lot of times when, let's say if he's talking to his grandkids, 30 years from now, and they say, yeah, your grandfather was drafted in the 2nd round. Like, that's what he said, 2nd round. Not knowing it's like they're the last pick in the 2nd round. Or it was their last pick in the 2nd round, I believe.
Yeah.
So, he was drafted late. So when some people, they hear 2nd round and it's like, oh, well, I thought he was more of a 3rd rounder or maybe even 4th rounder. If you're saying 4th rounder, then yeah, he's drafted a round early. But if you're saying 3rd rounder, he essentially was really close to that. And those are probably 3rd round great guys going in that range. So that part, I don't worry about that. And I also don't worry. I don't talk to scouts. So, and I haven't talked to anybody from the 49ers in that building to know where they had them or where other teams had them. And that's part of the part you have to kind of know where do teams have this guy. They felt like he was probably a 3rd round guy. So, okay, let's take him at pick 63 or 64 where they select him. Now, as far as his ability, this is where I have questions. I watched Ambry Thomas coming out of Michigan. And right away, I identify Ambry Thomas as a guy that really likes to work from the line of scrimmage, whether he was in zone, whether he was in man. Most of the time, he was in press alignment. And when I watched him play off against guys like Devontae Smith, it wasn't great. He wasn't the most fluid guy in space. But I felt more than comfortable with Ambry Thomas being the guy that if you're predominantly going to play him more than not at the line of scrimmage. With the 49ers, get him, and they're play a lot of off coverage. I'm like, it's not really what he does. And now we've seen it be a little bit more of a rougher transition to the NFL for Ambry Thomas and a little bit more hit and miss. There have been times where he played well, made a big interception week 18 his rookie year, but since then, been a roller coaster ride with him at the cornerback position, and he's kind of an afterthought right now. Green, he reminds me a lot of Roger McCreary coming out of Auburn a couple years ago. Roger McCreary, a lot of press man, a lot of man coverage at Auburn, a lot of playing guys at the line of scrimmage, slightly built guy as well. Green did all his work mostly from the line of scrimmage. And from off coverage, the one thing I'll give him over Ambry Thomas, I think he's a more fluid mover. I think he has good feet. I think he runs with guys well, but either he didn't feel as comfortable enough because he wasn't asked to do that a ton. But that's something where, hey, we like this guy because of his press man ability and his ability to be scrappy and maybe, I'm looking at the chat, maybe too scrappy for some people, but I like that. I'd rather tell somebody to tone it down as to try to tell them to be more physical. So if you're grabbing a little bit, okay, we can work that. But if you're not physical at all and guys are breaking off their routes and you're not even competing with them, that's where I have more of an issue. So I don't have a big issue on him being a little handsy. All right, but that's why I like him, because of his ability to work at the line of scrimmage. When I watch him play off, I didn't see quite that, that innate instincts that you would ideally like to see from, let's say, the Cooper DeJean, right? Feels really comfortable playing off, playing with his eyes, understanding route concepts. Like, that was his thing. He was good at that. I was like, man, he might transition very well as either a slot or or a safety. When you watch Green, though, I know where he does his work. So, again, big question is, how are the 49ers going to use him? Are you going to get him and then just say, hey, we're going to continue to run more of a quarter scheme and he's going to have to play his quarters from off alignment? Or are you going to say, you know what? We got some guys, they can really play press man. They do well at that. Even Diamador Lenore. Let's start leaning more towards that and doing things from more of a press man alignment or a press bail out of zone. And if they do that, then I really like the pick. But if they start playing him off a lot, I don't think I felt as comfortable with that. And there's going to be a transition. So now it's how quick does Larry want this transition to be? How quick do the fan base, the faithful, want this transition to be? Is this a guy that you're saying, hey, day one, we want him to start, but he's playing off? Then you're going to have to really live with some ups and downs.
Yeah,
and that's what they run into.
There's an art. I mean, you could speak to it better than I could, but there is truly an art to playing off coverage, and it's not as easy to know exactly the timing, the footwork, and if you haven't played a lot of off coverage, it can be very challenging. I think this is 2 drafts in a row now. The Niners have gone for a corner that was more of a press man guy. We didn't see a lot of Luter last year, but I talked to him in minicamp, and he's like, all I ever did was play, up on the line of scrimmage and press man. I don't feel as comfortable in off coverage.
I will say this real quick about Luter, though. When he did play off, they did do some off-man catch, and he was he did a great job at that. Now, he wasn't like this off backpedal, which you would be asked to do in quarters. He wasn't that. But he did do some off stuff where he felt comfortable. But, again, that's not the 49ers scheme. So, yeah, those are things there. Why didn't we see Luter? Obviously, there was the injury things and stuff like that. Is that the only reason?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, because we didn't, he was well over the knee bruise, I would say 4 or 5 weeks before we actually saw him. Who do you think, if Lenore and Mooney are your 2 corners, who do you think of their group? And they got a bunch of guys now. Who do you think is the leader in the clubhouse for that third job? Would you rather keep Lenore in the slot and look for an outside guy, or would you rather move Lenore outside and look for a slot? Who do you think's the third best corner for the Niners right now?
Well, first let's start with Lenore. Lenore has shown his ability to play inside or out. So it's like, hey, wherever y'all want to put me. If I am Diamador Lenore, I want to play outside. Why? Because that's where the money's at. You get paid a lot more, and they prioritize more, an outside guy as opposed to a nickel. Now, if you're telling me all things are equal, I would like to see him in that nickel spot because I know he does a good job there. And then you can have somebody else play the outside that you don't have to groom to play nickel the way you want. Sorensen, the new defensive coordinator, he was like a nickels coach as well. Like he has this rapport with Lenore. They understand how to do that job. So let's not have too many moving pieces. Now, maybe you say, all right, in base situations, you got Ward and Lenore on the outsides, and then nickel. All right, now Lenore, you slide inside. And now it's all right, who's going to be that outside guy? And for my money, and they're going to try everything with Green because I understand the way NFL works and roster politics. But Isaac Udom, I watched this guy coming out of Boston College.
Yeah.
He was a very scheme versatile defensive back. He was a guy that was very comfortable being able to play off, click and close, turn and run with guys. So if they want to continue to run a similar defense as to what we've seen over the last few years, he fits day one. Now, maybe you don't want him to be the guy that's out there every down. So, okay, Lenore, again, you're the base starting outside guy. But come nickel, all right, Lenore, slide inside, and Isaac Udom, I think most people would get comfortable with him being the guy that comes in. What does that mean for Green? And then now you're looking at the second round pick with, all right, now did you get it started? Did you not? Could you have drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry instead in the first round instead of Ricky and have a day one starting guy on the outside? Those are the only questions they know, but that's where it starts to get a little sticky.
How about Malik Mustapha? I thought it was a real lean year for safeties, and I loved Mustapha. The question I guess I would have is Mustapha, I think, okay, so they have Talanoa. I think he's better in the box than he is in the field. They have Jair. He's a productive interceptor, but his coverage, I think, is just okay. I think he's better in the box than playing the free safety spot. Can Mustapha play the deep middle and the cover three? Can he guard all that grass and play in coverage, or is he the third safety that they got who's probably better in the box as a strong safety? What do you think?
I think most of these safeties would tell you that, hey, man, I'm a safety, and they got to be versatile. And the 49ers, if you've really paid attention to how they use their safeties, I'm not telling you, but just the fan base, they got to be interchangeable. They have guys that maybe they like to do certain things with. Jimmy Ward, he come down in certain situations, play man on the slot. You're not asking Hufanga, Tayshaun Gibson, Jair Brown. You're not asking those guys to do that. But I will say this, and they showed a certain level of confidence in Talanoa Hufanga. I watched him against Seattle. This had to be the year he was All-Pro. I watched them have him in the slot and have to guard Tyler Lockett, who had a two-way go on him in space. You're manned up. You have no help. Outside corner not helping you. There's no safety in the middle of the field. You have no help. And Talanoa Hufanga not only covered him on this in-breaking route, but jumped the route, nearly intercepted it. It deflected off his hands, and then Tayshaun Gibson ended up picking it off. So that just shows you, in the 49ers secondary, you can't just be, I'm just going to be like this, Mustapha's going to be this box safety. Like, nah, you got to be able to do it all, or they're likely not going to feel comfortable putting him on the field. So, what did I like about him? I think we all see everyone speak about his ability in the run. I think he's very confident around there, being involved in the run game, coming off of that edge, trying to help in run support. He's a missile. I like the way he tackles. You see the lack of leak yardage. And then in space, because this is one thing that I felt like wasn't talked about a lot, watching him in quarters. And, again, is he a pure man corner? Or are you going to think he's Derwin James in coverage or Minka Fitzpatrick? Probably not. But can he do the job? Yeah, I believe so. And I watched him have to run guy ran a corner route, and he's responsible for anything vertically pushing by two. And he did a really good job of walling off the post and running to the corner and making a play on the ball in the end zone. So he has good movement skills. He has good speed that I feel like is necessary to be a versatile safety on the back end. Does he feel more comfortable at one area as opposed to another? I would say, yeah. But as a 49er safety, man, you got to be versatile. You have to.
Yeah, I think I like his coverage ability more than Hufanga. It'll be interesting to see this summer kind of how they utilize him and how much run he gets. I mean, they're pretty thin there. I mean, you got Hufanga who coming off the ACL. You got Jair, who's a tremendous player. Then you got Mustapha. Other than that, you got Odom, who's a special teamer. Yeah. The rest of the guys, I mean, Eric Harris and Taylor Hawkins. I mean, those guys are practice squad guys. So I mean, they're we'll see. I mean, they need Mustapha to fire.